Nice to meet you. Yes, the floor is yours.
Can I start?
Oh yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jie Zhiling from the Nala Institute of Science and Technology. Today, I'm excited to share our work on applying the transitional mixed reality interfaces, which we developed through a co-design study with flood-prone communities in Japan. In Japan, government-issued hazard maps are the primary tools for flood risk communication. These maps provide inundation and evacuation information to residents. However, they are often abstract and difficult to understand, especially for elderly residents. This creates comprehension barriers and low engagement with risk information. It's a communication gap that leaves vulnerable communities not prepared for flood. The 2018 Klasiki flood demonstrated this issue clearly. The flooded area closely matched the city's hazard map, but many residents didn't know they lived in a designated flood zone or how to evacuate. Some of them even refused government evacuation orders and stayed home, leading to more casualties. So how to effectively convey such flood risk communication to public emerged as the critical vulnerability in disaster preparedness. Our work builds on three key areas. First, AR and MR in disaster management. While prior work focused on professional training or lab-based education, there remains a gap in community-based public awareness applications. Second, transitional mixed reality interfaces. This concept originated from Billinghurst's Magic Book, which let users view AR content on book pages, then flight into immersive VR scenes, demonstrating the value of letting users choose the best medium for their information needs. Third, core design in AR and MR applications. A recent research emphasizes the importance of iterative prototyping and multi-stakeholder engagement when developing new XR applications for target users. Building on these foundations, our research had two main objectives. First, to explore how co-design can shape the development of community-centric transition MR system for flood risk communication, and second, to evaluate whether such a system improves citizen understanding compared to traditional hazard maps. To bridge the flood risk communication gap, we developed a transitional mixed reality interface, abbreviated as TMRI, inspired by the pioneering Magic Book concept. We designed the structure of TMRI for flood risk communication between the community educator and the residents. It's composed of three components: the operation server by educator, the client devices by community residents, and content server respectively. The operation server is used by educators for control and coordination across clients while instructing flood risk to community residents. The content server enables non-technical facilitator or staffs to customize community-specific content for diverse use cases. And the client devices are used by citizens to view content to understand educators' instruction. Citizens are allowed to see the overall flood situation from the bird's eye perspective in augmented reality. Then by selecting a VR portal, they seamlessly transition into an immersive first-person perspective in virtual reality to experience the personal impact of flood water. Crucially, we didn't develop this system in isolation. Our approach was grounded in a community-driven iterative co-design process, which you can see here. We began with the initial prototype and conducted 3 sequential workshops. The feedback from each workshop directly drove the next phase of development, allowing us to refine the system based on the community's real needs. And for the next few minutes, I will walk you through this journey step by step, starting with the workshop 1. The workshop 1, we tested our initial AR miniature map prototype on multiple devices with youth and families. We find high engagement across all ages. Users immediately located their homes and schools, sparking family discussion about flood impact. For devices, video see-through HMD like the Vision Pro provided excellent immersion, but required resistance to operate. The handheld tablets were more accessible and familiar, allowing independent use. This led us to focus development on both Vision Pro and tablets, combining immersion with accessibility. In workshop 2, we tested the AR to VR visualization and transition with 20 local families, about 50 to 60 people, many using mixed reality for the first time. We introduced the VR Street View portals overlaid on the AR miniature map, allowing users to seamlessly transition between overview and immersive perspectives. The result is every participant reported that the VR experience was highly impactful. Many described it as standing in the flood, which helped them understand the severity much more clearly than the AR overview alone. They noticed critical details they'd missed before, like how high water reached on buildings. The transition interface worked well. All groups successfully navigated between the AR and VR models after a brief tutorial. However, users identified 3 missing features. First, they wanted landmark icons to help them navigate, things like train stations or schools. And second, they requested evacuation shelter markers on the map for quick reference. And third, they asked how does the flood develop over time. They wanted to see the progression, not just the static situation. And based on this, we collaborated with river management authorities to obtain the official flood simulation data, then prototype our system to the next phase. And workshop 3 focused on elderly users, our most vulnerable population. We tested the enhanced system with 50 seniors, aged 65 and above, in the flood area near the Kizu River in Japan. We implemented 3 flood visualization methods using official flood data from river management authorities. They are government-style hazard maps, a red depth gradient, and realistic muddy or blood water. The hazard map pattern was familiar and clear when combined with 3D buildings. The red gradient was universally praised as intuitive for identifying dangerous deep areas. Realistic visualizations received mixed feedback. Someone commented the muddy color conveyed the danger, while blue was more recognizable as water. While for landmark and UI usability, evacuation-related landmarks worked exceptionally well. Seniors quickly located evacuation shelters and find them valuable for emergency planning. The flood data panel was accessible by users requested 2 improvements. 1, the ability to check information anywhere on the map, not just flooded areas. And 2, visible timeline information on their devices to understand the elapsed time of flood progression. We refined the system to address this request, completing our iterative design process, then conducted a preliminary use study to validate the final system, which I will present in the next slide. To validate our iterative design, we conducted a preliminary use study with 30 residents from the Kizu River flood zone, with the mean age of 61. We used the within subject design with 2 sequential sessions. The session 1 compared the traditional paper hazard maps to AR hazard maps using the same government standard pattern. We matched risk internalization across 3 dimensions using a 5-point Likert scale. In session 2, evaluated the complete AR-VR transitional system with all 3 visualization patterns using a standard system usability scale. The results from session 1 were comparing. AR significantly outperformed the paper maps across all three measures, showing an overall 19.3% improvement in perceived effectiveness. Session 2 reviewed a system usability scale score of 62.4 out of 100, while slightly below the average benchmark. This is reasonable for novel technology with elderly users. Participants find the system easy to use and express high confidence. However, they requested reduced complexity, more realistic flood dynamics, and clear evacuation guidance. Our evaluation revealed clear advantages. Participants appreciated how 3D visualization helped them understand evaluation and water flow better than paper maps. However, usability challenges emerged. Users need time to learn the interface. Requesting clear guidance, participants also suggested key improvements, more realistic flood dynamics with debris and better highlighted evacuation routes. Finally, we evaluated only one elderly community, so broader validation across diverse demographics is still needed in the future. To conclude, we co-designed a transitional MR interface through iterative workshops with vulnerable communities, demonstrating clear advantages over traditional methods. A future work focuses on two areas: accessibility improvements, including guide arrows and more simplified interfaces, and collaborative features like map annotation and close reality avatars for shared evacuation planning. We will evaluate with diverse communities using better survey methods, and our vision is a collaborative mixed reality environment that improves flood preparedness while meeting the actual community needs. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Good presentation in perfect time. So, you guys some questions, and then just. Is there any questions? Oh, yes, please.
Thank you for your talk. It was nice. Do you have a single question per each question?
It's like a questionnaire. We made like investigation about the previous questionnaire concerning the like risk internalization or like awareness. We just made our own questions with three single questions. And how to say, because our target users, target users like elderly people, so we present such three questions to them and introduce the concept of like a risk awareness or risk internalization to help them fill in this questionnaire.
So the graph itself is showing only the single question for each graph?
So come again.
I mean the graph you showed, the 3-bar graph. So
three
that's
dimensions.
So that's came from single question result, each of them.
Single question? No. It's like a complete questionnaire. It includes the three single questions. It's not like three different questionnaires.
Okay, thank you.
So another questions? Let me ask just one question.
Yeah. Please.
I think just your work is very effective to the social neighborhood, but just I think sometimes maybe just the hazard map pattern could be updated. Provided this government. So when hazard map pattern just updated, how could you just reflect the real-time information or just update the information to your work? Do you have some plan for that?
Yeah. So actually, this one we how say? Actually, this project is like we collaborated with like a government, and if like we present like such system to the government for use. So if like as I say like a non technical facilitators or staffs from the government, they if they can like master how say they can take full use of our system, or what they can do is just to like upload or update their local content to the system. I think they can do it by themselves. Okay, so it's no problem I think in the future.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you for the talk. It was really interesting. You mentioned that specifically for elderly, access and like usability of mixed reality devices is like notoriously difficult. That being the case, when it comes to using this system and specifically for the elderly, is there any plan or thoughts on how you would get the elderly to get access to these devices, or even like use these on the tablet version, use it at all, like usability, get access to them, or have like some sort of training for them to learn how to use it? Because like my grandma would never be able to figure that out without a lot of help, you know?
Yeah, I think I mentioned, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so I listed in my future direction, because it's like a Japanese, like a local elderly peoples. So our current, how say, our current initial thought is it's just like a current, how say, preliminary plan to just add like some simplified like arrows or like some text to guide them how to like click this button. Or for example, from our like workshops, when we present the tablets to the elderly users, they even didn't know how to use it, and just like how say, so this is like a marker, and they just lower the tablets to the table instead of like aiming to the markers. So there's no like models they can see. It's like our like experimental staffs to like guide them, say that you should scan the marker to show this to show these digital models. So maybe if in future our plan is there to add like some user friendly like arrows maybe on the edge of the tablet to guide the elderly people to anchor to let them to see this digital model on the marker above the markers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Please give a big round of applause to the presenter again, and invite the next presenters.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to present our work in the training for or against natural phenomena session at ISMAR. The title of our presentation is Integrated, Augmented, and Virtual Reality Technologies for Realistic Fire Drill Training. Since our first author couldn't attend due to work commitment in industry, I'll be giving the presentation on behalf of our team. My name is Sumi Che, and I'm a professor at Sejong University in Seoul, Korea. AR and VR have separate ecosystems. As you know, AR usually use a see-through HMD, which allow users to see the real world with a digital overlay. VR, on the other hand, use a closed HMD that completely block the real world to create a full immersion. Because of this difference, their main application advantages and limitations are also quite different. AR builds on the real world, but its special limitation made it hard to design diverse training scenario. VR, on the other hand, offers highly immersive environment, but it's completely disconnected from real-world experience and content. What new training value emerged when AR and VR are seamlessly integrated into a continuous fire drill experience? Actually, we had a government project for fire drill training. To address this, we built a unified fire drill training system that combined AR and VR on a single headset, providing one continuous and immersive experience. In this system, the AR environment is used for fire suppression training, while the VR environment is used for evacuation, allowing us to take advantage of the unique strengths of each. The fire suppression training in AR provides body-centered, unembodied, hands-on training using a real water-based fire extinguisher. It helps users develop muscle memory and improve skill acquisition and retention. We also implemented intelligent, lifelike fire effect that responded to estimated physical parameters such as compostability, type, size, mass, and material. For example, wood is combustible, while iron is non-combustible. This is how our training scenario unfolds. It starts in AR, where the system recognizes real-world objects and their property. A realistic virtual fire is then generated based on that data. The trainee uses a physical fire extinguisher prop to put out the virtual fire, just like they would in the real world. Finally, we make a seamless transition to a fully virtual environment for a complete evacuation drill. To realize this, we built a fully integrated system. The hardware is centered around the Vive Pro HMD, which we use for both AR and VR. We actually implemented two versions of the single HMD setup. At the time of CGA publication, we used the Vive Pro HMD. However, since Vive stopped providing consistent software update for that device, so we recently re-implemented the system by combining a MetaQuest headset with a Jet Mini camera as well. In this talk, I will explain using the first version for consistency. This system also includes a tangible fire extinguisher, which we modified with a tracker for realistic interaction. It also uses anchor trackers to ensure safe locomotion in VR. On the software side, we use the SRWorks SDK for real-time 3D reconstruction, our custom AI model to analyze object property, and a central control manager that seamlessly handles all interaction and transition. Our work introduced four key contributions. First, our intelligent AR fire simulation. Our AI pipeline first recognizes an object's type and volume, then classifies its material, such as fabric or wood, and finally estimates its mass. This allows us to create a dynamic, physics-based fire that behaves differently depending on what's burning, which is crucial for realism. For example, the color of the smoke changes, the right figure changes with the material, and the size and duration of the fire depends on the object size. Left video shows the moving on to the how we utilize this detection and the estimation in AR environment. I'd like to show two examples. First, let's look at our AR fire simulation. What makes our system unique is that it responds to physical property in three ways. The fire spread based on the proximity between objects. Different material trigger different effects. For example, ceramic object, the yellow cup is shattered instead of burned. The fire behavior adapts to the object size and weight, with a smaller object burning out faster. On the right, you can see our interaction example through an avatar. User can interact with the fire in various ways, detecting real fire source, initiating controlled burn, and implementing fire suppression with virtual water. Second, we focused on tangible object interaction. Effective training requires building muscle memory. So we transformed a standard water-based fire extinguisher into a high-fidelity training tool, fully synchronized with the virtual environment. It used a vibe tracker for position, a gyroscope for hose direction, and a button for activation. User feedback confirmed that this setup was highly effective for skill transfer and helped user practice realistic movement with confidence. This photo was taken during a demonstration at an exhibition, where a young participant tried the system. Since the fire extinguisher has a 4-liter capacity with water, it is quite heavy for a child, and you can see him supporting it by resting it on his knee. Because the extinguisher only operates after removing the safety pin, a participant can also practice how to properly use the real extinguisher. Third, we introduced the seamless AR to VR transition. We connect the two experiences through an intuitive portal. After the AR task is completed, a virtual door appears. Walking through that door seamlessly transports the user into the VR environment. This maintains narrative flow and keeps user fully engaged throughout the session. Finally, our fourth contribution is natural and safe VR locomotion. One of the key challenges in VR is moving through a large virtual space without colliding with a real-world object. To address this, we implemented a walking-in-place technique using ankle trackers. The system detected the user's leg movement, allowing intuitive forward motion in VR while the user safely remains in one spot. Here you can see our video demo. Avatar is ongoing work for the visual guidance, the visual avatar, guidance avatar, and then element-based guidance. First, detect the 3D object, and then classify this is the combustible or non-combustible, the material. Depending on the material and size, the fire is the size is different and duration is different. And then with the real water-based tangible extinguisher, user can put out the fire. Following the avatar, the user will go through the virtual environment to train the evacuation training. And then user can follow the avatar's pose. Now we are implementing for the chatting with the user and then to guide the how to work, and then based on vision language model we can detect the user's mistake, something like this is the ongoing work and future work. To validate our system, we conducted a comprehensive user study with 21 adult participants. Each session included a baseline assessment, a 5 minutes training, and a post-session evaluation using standard tools like the STEM usability scale and the similar sickness questionnaire, followed by a short qualitative interview. The results were very positive. We achieved the mean system usability score of 88.75, which falls in the excellent range. The immersion score was also high, about 83. Participants mentioned that real and virtual world felt well when integrated, and that using a tangible fire extinguisher was a key factor in enhancing both immersion and learning effectiveness. In conclusion, our work successfully demonstrates that integrating AR and VR can create unique training benefit. We developed the key method for AI-powered realism and validate our approach through comprehensive user study. Importantly, our study also revealed the hardware limitation of its time. We found that for a truly natural AR experience, high-quality, low-latency camera were essential, but that was a real challenge with the device available back then. With the arrival of a powerful mixed reality headset this year, probably next year, those limitations can be overcome, I hope. Our next step is to develop an interactive AI agent. As you see, there's some with avatar-based, virtual trainer character that can guide user within mixed environment, both AR and VR. We also plan to create an expanded training scenario, applying our integration approach to other domains beyond the fire safety. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for good presentation. And yeah, is there any questions? Please.
Thank you for your talk. Just a quick question. Maybe I missed this bit. Realism was one of your measurements. Like you asked your participants, like how realistic they felt this was. I was just wondering, do you hear me? Like, okay. Did you have any expert feedback? Because I would assume that most users have not experienced being in a burning house. So did you get some, I don't know, firefighter?
Yeah. Actually, the publication, for the CJ publication, we evaluated with the 21 adult participants. But besides this publication, we met some experts from the real government fire-related department. And they said, actually, they really wanted to the AR. At that time, back around 2 years ago already, they wanted to use HoloLens with a real fire because their training system is the text-based still. All Korea is text-based training, the text. So they wanted to use the HoloLens with the real extinguisher because they said, even with the textbook, if you see the fire, you cannot use the fire extinguisher. You never have tried the extinguisher. So you don't know that you have to put out the safety pin. Even people don't know where is the safety pin. So that kind of issue. So they first suggested they need the HoloLens. But as you know, HoloLens, they don't support it as stopped. And the Vive Pro is also stopped. It's very difficult to choose the device when you try something project, even though already the project period is 2 or 3 years. But during some devices stopped, very difficult. Yeah, that kind of issue. But originally, expert wanted this kind of system, AR-based system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the very nice talk. We did a similar project a couple years ago, but it was much simpler compared to your very nicely integrated ones. But at that time, our objective is to simulate evacuation rather than extinguishing the fires. So we focus on the material recognition and then the smoke spreading, and also the change in color and the height of the smoke. Normally the smoke starts with the white color, and then it becomes gray, and it becomes completely black, and your sight will be lost. So you have to duck down, and then you have to walk near the ground. Yeah. So do you also are also looking into such kind of the more realistic
Actually, I skip the research work, but if you see the paper, there are many research related work. But after we reviewing the relative work, nobody connected the VR and AR in one unified system. And then usually the people try in the VR environment. The main reason is it's very difficult to find the appropriate device for AR. As you see, the HoloLens, and then usually the people apply a kind of VR system and then camera and then pass-through system they use. But still the problem is the camera is the latency and then resolution. It's a little bit difficult. The technology issue is still. So, but we tried in the future, there will be something developed for the, I hope for this year and next year, a kind of XR device, MR device, and then if it changes VR and AR easily, this kind of scenario will be applied easily. So we expect that kind of device.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And just please give a round of applause to the presenters. And I'd like to invite the next presenters.
Testing people to read the opacity of smoke for environmental conditions. Why we care about this is in the real world, opacity certification is required to regulate industrial emissions. This often comes in the form of methane emissions. And this requires people to get certified, takes hours and a lot of money to send these people out to the field to watch real world smoke release, and this is just sending smoke needlessly into the environment. So we propose that virtual reality offers an eco-friendly and repeatable way to train people in a safe environment that they can do from the comfort of their own homes. With this in mind, we came up with a couple research questions. So the first one is evaluating the performance. Does VR actually improve or keep the pace of real-world training when you're comparing it to VR? Second, we want this to be usable, and if we're going to scale this, we want it to be immersive and capture the attention of people doing this. And finally, how does the cognitive load differ between the VR and real-world participant groups? A little bit about our participants. In total, we recruited 33 people. Only 32 actually proceeded with the study because one participant dropped out due to cyber sickness. We had 22 men and 10 women aged 22 to 35. These were primarily college-age students, but there were also adults from around the local university included in the study. We then broke these into two equal groups. We had a control group where they utilized a laptop and a TV to do a traditional training, similar to how you would be trained to do this in the real world. And then we had our VR group where they utilized our Unity-built platform on a MetaQuest 3. We chose the MetaQuest 3 for its standalone nature. We wanted people to be able to freely walk around the environment and interact without having to feel like they were tethered or sit down. Looking into the smoke, so we followed real-world procedures where we have 0% opacity to 100% opacity and 5% increments. Opacity is defined by the amount of light that is transmitted through the smoke plume. So if you're looking at 50% opacity, for example, if you look through the smoke at the top of the smokestack, you'll see 50% black smoke and 50% blue sky behind. Where 100% opacity, if you look through the smoke, you should see 0% of the sky behind it. We use both black and white smoke, similar to the real world, because when you're training, you don't necessarily know what type of smoke you're going to be working with. Different combustion produces different smoke. So we trained you and tested you on both. Our real-world footage here in the form of images right now were sourced from an actual real-world certification event where we recorded all these smoke releases as they were being tested. So our test and training mimics exactly a real-world certification. In VR, we utilized uniform lighting and distance from the smokestack for the training and testing to keep it consistent and make sure that they learn how to read the smoke, not just environmental impacts. Our procedures, both groups started with initial guidelines and regulations. So when you're reading smoke opacity, you need to specifically look at the top of the smoke plume, for example, where the smoke is being emitted and not at the cloud that's actually emitted because you can lose some smoke. So we taught them how to do this in 5 minutes and gave them brief guidelines before they were separated into VR and real world. The VR group did 2 different training sessions for a total of 15 minutes before doing a 15-minute test also in VR. And then they did qualitative forms in the SUS and an NASA TLX. The control group mimicked this, but instead of using VR, they used videos and images on the TV in the form of a PowerPoint, similar to how you get trained in the real world. And then they took a paper test using a TV and videos. Looking into how they train for the non-VR group, here's an example of a smoke release on the left. So this would be 100% white opacity. This is a video, again, from a real-world certification event. And you have on the right a participant where he has the full freedom in the PowerPoint. He's looking at 4 different videos, but he can play each video as many times as he wants. They were instructed, as you are at a real-world event, that white smoke is much more difficult to learn than black smoke. So we told them to maybe pay a bit more attention to this. This is because white smoke inherently contrasts differently with the environment. So here it's blue skies and you have trees in the background, but often if the sky is cloudy and you're trying to read white smoke, it's very difficult to tell if it's 50% opacity because you're looking through a white plume and the background is also white. So black smoke was much easier and is, from prior studies, much easier. So a lot of participants spend more time here. In contrast, our VR group started in 2 different rooms. This is the first room where it was a gradient setup. On the right side of the room, they saw white smoke from 0 to 100%. On the left side, they saw black smoke. We chose to do this approach because it's very difficult to tell the difference between, say, 50% and 55% opacity. But if you can see 50% and 60%, and you can find the minute differences, maybe you can find why 55% is different from 50%. After 7 minutes there, they were ported into this room, which is a single smokestack. It does have an opacity tag on it so that they can always visually see what it is. But here they have full control. So they were given a 3D desk with buttons on the desk that corresponded to every opacity. So they could click through it. We told them and highlighted the core opacities, which are 25% increments. So if you can know 0, 25, 50, 75, etc., you can usually do pretty well by just finding ranges on the test. So they spend a lot of time on that. Additionally, they can toggle between black and white smoke as they choose. Like I said, white smoke is much more difficult, but some participants maybe found it easier. It just clicked for them so they could spend more time on black smoke. Looking at how we actually evaluated this, this is an actual testing form that is given when you are doing a certification event. It's broken into 2 separate portions of 25 rows each. The first 25 correspond to the white portion, where we show them white smoke for 3 seconds. They only see the smoke for 3 seconds, and then they're told to say what the opacity was. So they'll circle a number, and then they get a 10-second break. They're told to rest their eyes, close their eyes, look around. Just don't strain your eyes by staring at the smokestack. And then the next smoke is released. They do this a total of 25 times for white smoke, and then repeat it for black smoke. The scoring system works where if the C50 is circled for the first row, if the 50 opacity is shown, and they said 45 or 55, they get 1 point. If they said 40 or 60, they get 2 points, and so on. In total, you would like to get below 37 points for each section, and you never want to miss by more than 15% opacity or more in a single reading. So here's an example of how the non-VR group was tested. Before each testing segment, they were shown the core opacities again, so from 0 to 100% opacity in 25% increments to kind of reset them. So they know this is what white opacity looks like before going in, and then they'll do this again for black opacity. And this is actually done in the real world as well, so we are mimicking this exactly. And then they'll see this is going to be very quick, but they get 3 seconds here to see it. Then they'll circle their answer, and then the next one will come up. And they do this a total of 50 times. Our VR group mimicked this exactly. So here again, they're instead of white smoke, they're now seeing black smoke. The VR group had in their ear, it would tell them this is 50%, this is 75%, up to 100 before they start their test. And you'll see after 100%, the participant will rest his eyes or her eyes. They'll look down and they'll wait for the word mark. When they heard the word mark, they will look up and they will see smoke present for only 3 seconds. So it's key that they only get 3 seconds. If they don't know it, they do have to make a guess, which can lead to higher results, but that's the way that testing works in the real world. Looking at how they did, for black and white smoke, we chose to look at them separately. For the black smoke, our VR participants performed very well, where we saw significant results with an average score of 33.44 compared to the non-VR group, where they averaged 46, which is higher than the target goal of 37. Both groups on the white smoke performed much more poorly, but this was expected. So our VR group on average got 57.75 points, while the non-VR group got 67.27. So this was targeted at our first research question, where we wanted to look specifically at the performance of smoke opacity assessment between the two groups. If you break this down per class for the VR group, we can see exactly what opacities they're missing. You can see 60% gave them the most trouble for white, and actually was above, on average, the 3-point threshold, or 15% that they were supposed to be under. We hypothesized that this was because this was the very first reading of the test. The test is very fast-paced, so while we told them how fast it was going to be and instructed them what it would be like, in real time, they saw the smoke, and then they maybe panicked and just circled something. But for black smoke, no single reading was above the 3-point threshold, and they performed very well. Also, for white high-end smoke, between 80 to 100%, they were nearing the threshold, but they still were below. For our second and third research questions, we wanted to look at attention, immersion, and cognitive load. Our system usability scale showed that we showed significant results that VR was easier to use and they felt more confident. So users like to use this system instead of just sitting there watching another boring lecture in PowerPoint. And our NASA TLX scale showed that VR reported lower mental demand and less frustration. So we did see significant results for a reduction in cognitive load. In the future, we have a couple ideas here, but overall, our VR training platform showed that we can accurately train people to read and predict the opacity of smoke, especially when it comes to black smoke. White smoke might need to be refined a little bit in the future. The participants did report strong usability and lower frustration. This does indicate that potentially this app can be scaled. We can start getting this in the hands of experts and seeing if they prefer training at home and reducing the actual emissions going into the air. In the future, we want to adapt this training to separate fields such as disaster relief or construction workers. Additionally, we'd like to mimic more oil and gas sites. Our environment was constrained to mimic only training and testing, but if we can mimic an actual oil and gas site that they would be going to, for example, and testing with wind conditions or rain and snow, seeing how this actually would apply in the real world. We do acknowledge a couple limitations. Our sample size, while we used a G-STAR power test for 32 participants, we got exactly 32 participants. We had no real smoke validation due to cost and releasing smoke. We did not bring all of our participants out to do a smoke release and test them there. And finally, we didn't mimic real-world oil and gas sites where we'll actually be doing this in the future, but that's related works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful presentation. Okay. I think just we could have just about one question. Please, is there any questions? Oh yeah, please.
Thank you for the presentation. So if I understood correctly, you trained the participants in VR and tested in VR and trained with videos and tested with video. Of course, like I understand that like real smoke would be like too much effort, but have you considered like cross-checking, like training in VR and testing the video and training video and testing in VR?
Yeah, we did consider that, and we're thinking about doing that in another work, but one of the related works actually was proposing that they had a platform kind of certified where they did VR with just only videos, so it's kind of like using VR as a screen, but they did their entire application in VR. So we wanted to show that our VR framework, they could train and test in VR, and then ideally it will generalize to real-world videos, but we want to test that at a future time, because we agree that they're going to need to look at real smoke eventually. But we wanted to make sure that our platform worked before we tried it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody, welcome. So I want you to picture this. So the sun is shining and you see a fresh water with your best friend off the distance course. And suddenly, the snow layer breaks, right? And a wall of snow rushes down with you. Within seconds, you're usually buried and it becomes dark. And now you know that your partner has roughly 18 minutes to search, find, and dig you out. After that time, your survival chances are dropping dramatically. And hopefully your partner knows exactly what to do, how to operate the tools, and which search pattern to follow. This is reality in avalanche rescue. And this is also the motivation behind our research I would like to present today. And with this picture in mind, I would like to welcome you to the presentation of Transforming Avalanche Rescue Training. Together with my co-authors Annalena Hetzenauer and Christopher Sitar from the University of Innsbruck and Media Squad, we asked the important question, can virtual reality transform how we train for avalanche search and rescue? There are basically three essential tools every freerider should carry with them when they're off-piste skiing. This is like a beacon, which is used to find buried people which are buried under snow by emitting or receiving a radio signal. Then there's a probe, which is a collapsible metal rod used to pinpoint the exact location and the depths of the buried person. And then finally, it's a shovel used to dig out the persons. These three tools are essential in backcountry safety equipment. Yet such tools are of no help if you do not know how to operate them. Here, repeated training can make the difference. People who know the protocol, who have practiced with beacon, probe, and the shovel, can search and rescue people fast. Of course, there's plenty of learning material like videos, books, or even interactive online courses out there. Yet many of these sources strongly recommend taking hands-on courses to build this foundational knowledge you really need. But the traditional avalanche training courses also have challenges and limitations. It requires snow, certain terrain, and instructors. They're sometimes quite expensive and time-intensive, and it also kind of depends on where you live. And most importantly, the opportunities for repetition are limited. This is like kind of a typical scenario where you have one course instructor and many students, and of course you get this kind of hands-on experience, but maybe only 2 or 3 practice runs. And that's not enough to build this automatic, reliable skill that will also work under stress. Additionally, it is recommended to refresh your knowledge every winter, because during the summertime you might forget some of the essential information you need, right? If we look at VR in a professional context, it is already used for early responders or in medicine or for firefighters. And the evidence shows that VR can improve the procedural knowledge, the confidence, and also the knowledge retention. But for avalanche rescue, and in particular for recreational skiers, there's no such evidence yet. And that's the gap we are closing. So our research questions are: first, how does VR avalanche rescue training compares to traditional methods in terms of learning outcomes and skill retention? And secondly, what is the impact of VR training on participants' confidence and perceived readiness in real-life avalanche rescue scenarios? To answer that questions, we built a VR avalanche search and rescue training simulator and conducted a between-subject study. So we compared here on the left side the traditional avalanche training and the VR training. So we have 2 groups. For the traditional avalanche training, we recruited 21 participants. They were trained in 4 groups for a full day. So we have like 5 to 6 students and 1 instructor. Our participants had on average 30 days of skiing per season. And we measured the knowledge retention by multiple choice questions and open-ended questions, as well as their self-efficacy using 14 questions covering the beacon, probe, shovel usage, as well as emotions. On the other hand, we have the virtual reality avalanche training group. There we recruited 22 participants. They had an average 15 days of skiing per season, and they only get 45 minutes on average VR experience for the training. And of course, this was an individual training. Again, we measured the knowledge, the self-efficacy, and since we are in VR, we also use the SUS, nasal helix, the movement within the environment, as well as the interactions with the different equipment. Following the discussion we had yesterday in the panel, I would like to highlight here one of the limitations. So the group in the traditional avalanche training, they paid for the course. So they had like also an intrinsic motivation to actually learn something, while for the virtual reality avalanche training, we recruited on the campus via mailing lists, right? So there was no intrinsic motivation to learn actually, but still it was skiing people. The procedure was quite straightforward, so we worked closely with the course instructors and recruited the participants before the course on the parking lot of the local ski resort. Then we assessed the demographics, their knowledge prior to the test, and self-efficacy. And then participants took the full day course covering the basically theoretical and practical components. And then after the course, we did the post-test, again, same knowledge and self-efficacy questionnaire. Pretty similar for the virtual reality awareness training. We recruited on campus, as said, via mailing lists and flyers. And then we ran the same pre-test, gave them a brief introduction into virtual reality, and then participants experienced the VR training, including a guided and an unguided search and rescue situation. Finally, they filled out the post-test questionnaire. So how does this virtual reality experience actually look like? It all started in a garage where the participants learned how to teleport and interact within the virtual environment. And they were tasked to pack the backpack, ensuring not to forget any of the essential items. Then in the next scene, they are at the parking lot and they learn the procedure of a search and rescue operation via card sorting and do the necessary equipment check. Then the avalanche is triggered and one of the group members is buried. The participants are tasked to manage the search and rescue operations. Here you see the visual guided search and rescue operations, where we help with these kind of blue line to move most efficiently across the avalanche cone. And after the beacon picked up the signal, the participants followed the signal towards the buried person to conduct the probing. And then when they have pinpointed the buried person, they start digging out using the shovel. And then finally, the experience ends with a short summary of the performance and potential tips for future scenarios. So these participants in our group, they did this 2 times, once with these kind of blue lines and indicators to help them in the first run, and then the second one without this kind of blue visual guidance. So what did we find? Based on the knowledge assessment, the t-test showed a significant learning gain for the traditional training. So this basically shows that traditional training hands-on, this works. The same holds for the virtual reality experience. When we look at the self-efficacy assessment, the participants are significantly more confident in handling an avalanche scenario after the course. And also here again, the same holds for the virtual reality experience. To address our initial research question, we conducted a between-group comparison to investigate the effects of the training method, so traditional versus VR, on both the knowledge increase and self-efficacy. We used Bayesian statistics and evaluated how each training method impacted the outcome. And overall, the results indicate that both knowledge increase and self-efficacy assessment is primarily driven by the participants' prior knowledge or their confidence rather than the training method itself. So VR does not have an effect, right? We have basically kind of the same slope. And please keep in mind here that for the VR experience, we had only 45 minutes of training compared to like kind of a full day course. Since we also logged the movement data, we can analyze for different user behavior when moving along the avalanche cone, right? We just like plotted this here. And here you see the kind of zigzag trajectory, which is the optimal search pattern. But beginners often start kind of wrong and wandering in straight lines. So you might miss because like kind of the speaking have only a range of 30 meters left and right. So you walk the zigzag. And in VR, we can actually capture this automatically and give instant feedback. And this precision feedback is nearly impossible for traditional real-world training with just one instructor, right? And that's actually where VR can shine and play out the full potential. In our research, we also conducted semi-structured interviews with mountain guides that I do not cover today, but they helped us to set our findings into better perspective. So please see the paper for more details here. Based on our results, we argue for a hybrid approach for training. So use VR for building this kind of procedural knowledge, do repetition, and do complex scenarios, which you usually can't do in the real world, like multi-person buried scenarios, following with your eyes when somebody is buried by the slab of snow, right? It's really hard to do in the real world. You don't want to do this. And use the real world training, the snow training, for equipment handling, for experiencing the stress, experience the physical exertion, right? That's what we can't do yet in the virtual world, like knowing how heavy and how exhausting it is if you want to shovel snow. We're the kind of haptic session. We can simulate stuff, but we can't simulate weight beyond a few grams. Together, this can cover the full spectrum, which is actually needed in this kind of evaluation, in this kind of training. So to wrap up, we started with the idea of getting affordable, accessible, and repeatable training. And our VR training delivers outcomes comparable to traditional avalanche courses. Yet the participants' confidence and perceived readiness raises concerns. VR can best reinforce these kind of core skills before advancing, and it allows for simulating scenarios beyond the practicality. So if you're now excited about winter, as I am, you can go to the App Store and just like download this application for your Quest 3 and train for your next rides. Thank you, and I'm now really happy to discuss any further questions.
Okay. Thank you so much for good, wonderful presentations. Just we could have just questions from Pro.
You can test for many times, right? Compared to traditional like training course.
Absolutely. This
Yeah.
is like the kind of this repeated over and
Yeah,
over again,
exactly.
like before, like after summertime, if you
Yeah.
just like, like Epstein
Yeah,
curve of
exactly.
forgetting,
So
you just have to do it again, right? To know what to do when you're in these kind of situations. Exactly. Yeah. This. is
yeah,
like a
I want to know
perfect
like
part.
did you also have the evaluation like for the user they have several times training on VR games? Would they actually improving better?
I mean, the challenging part here is that we designed the questionnaire and we just ask for a certain set of knowledge, right? And like you top out at a certain point, right? So you have to add more knowledge to the VR experience to convey more knowledge, and then you can make the questionnaire more difficult. But most of them like they learned all a lot throughout the course and the VR experience.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Just another questions? Oh, yes, please.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I know your point is to mix these two different methods together, but if you're just looking at each training itself, have you thought about measuring some retention of the knowledges or the confidence after a while? Right after the training, they have some differences knowledges, but what about after a month or 2 months? Is physical better retention, or the VR has a similar retention? If you have some gut feeling about it, please, yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for this really important question. Unfortunately, we did not test after like a week or a month the same participants how they feel now. Like after the course, practical and in VR, they feel quite confident, and I think this is a kind of thing which raises concerns that if you are in VR and you did the training and you feel now confident going outdoors, never use the shovel, never use the physical probe yet. This is kind of the tricky part, right? Where we argue for like, you have to do this, you have to have this kind of hands-on experience. I don't have a real gut feeling about how this will like on the long scale will change. I think it's really part of future research. Thank you.
Oops. Another question? Okay, just back there.
Hi, I'm Daniel from the University of Florida. So I was curious to see, could a future project maybe explore using AR to like maybe go to the mountain in the summer when it's like not snowing anymore, and then you want to kind of simulate what it would be like going up and down the mountain, but it's just in the summertime and there's like simulating winter in AR.
Yeah, I think this is probably like a kind of intrinsic motivation. Should I learn avalanche rescue or search and rescue in summer times? But this is probably on a different page. Otherwise, like doing AR VR with current technology outside is still kind of painful. We like people who tried know. So we just like stick to the lab for the first place. But I really like the idea to just like really overlay the mountain with snow, and they're like, oh, this is like the dangerous part. Like, don't go here. I really thought about this a lot. Can we build this? Can we have like kind of this technology to stop people going to the dangerous zones and stay here and just like knowing the avalanche forecast? Like, or today is like kind of 2 out of 5. You can go there, but today is 4 out of 5. Don't go there because it's too steep. That would definitely help stop people doing stupid things.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to just extend my gratitude. Yeah, this is end of just our last presentation, and I'd like just to ask you all a big round of applause again.